The Supreme Court, meanwhile, delivering a blow to former President Trump's legal team. The highest court denied their bid to have a special master look over more than 100 classified documents seized during the FBI's unprecedented raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. Joining us right now is the Federalist senior editor, Christopher Bedford. Chris, great to see you. Thanks very much for being here. We've got a lot to talk about with you. But first, your thoughts on the Supreme Court ruling.
I don't think it's particularly surprising. President Trump went out a bit on a limb here to try and stop that review of those a little over 100 classified documents. Of course, it's disappointing, and it certainly undermines Americans' trust of why can't people look over this? Why can't an extension of the court look over these classified documents? So far, the government's leaked to the press that they had something to do with nuclear secrets, but of course, we've seen no actual evidence of that. And of course, President Trump's legal team will finally be able to review these if he is in fact indicted. So they will still get a chance to do that. It's disappointing, but I don't think it's too shocking.
Let's talk about the Igor Danchenko bombshells. Another bombshell coming out of this trial. We're learning that the FBI paid Igor Danchenko more than $200,000 to be a confidential source over a 3-year period. Former Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos telling Fox News Digital that Durham is, quote, basically showing that the FBI had Danchenko on the payroll and was allowing an FBI informant to lie to them in order to continue to frame Trump. I mean, Chris, they tried to get him to corroborate a lot of those things in the dossier. He was unable to do it. And then we know that in January of 2017, he gave the FBI a 3-day interview during which he said, we made it up. We embellished. We were having beers with friends. And yet the FBI continued to surveil the Trump campaign and put surveillance programs in place for Carter Page for a year. Your thoughts?
This was wild testimony to see the FBI agent who still wanted to pay Danchenko over another $300,000 on top of the money he got, defending his integrity, defending the source, attacking anyone who said, hey, by the way, this is someone, Danchenko is someone who was reviewed 10 years prior for possibly being a double agent for the Russians. He said this guy's an honorable guy. He was a great source, one of the best he'd seen in his 20-year career. And what was he doing? He was collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars from the U.S. government to make up stuff that none of which was ever corroborated. The FBI was so desperate to do this, they offered Steele himself $1 million to try and actually finally corroborate this stuff, and this agent is still seemingly standing by some of the work of his informant. Well, we now know it was all bunk, and it shows you just how thick the blinders are on some of these agents.
Well, it's even worse than that. I mean, what is he trying to do here, John Durham? Try to make it look like the FBI was duped? I'm not buying it, okay? Here's the Wall Street Journal this morning in an op-ed. The special counsel is using tried and true lying to the feds charges to unravel for the public the hoax, which on its face requires painting the FBI as dupes. Yet every filing and witness question is instead building Mr. Durham's case of rank FBI malfeasance. Let's talk about the FBI and what went wrong here. Were they really duped, or was the leadership at the FBI driving a narrative that wasn't true because they just wanted to take down a political enemy?
I think it's certainly the latter. They've shown animus towards the president. They've shown a willingness to believe completely far-fetched and on-their-face ridiculous assertions. They've shown a willingness to work with people who were corrupt, people who'd been investigated previously, people who couldn't corroborate their claims, and to pay them money if they could come up with the kind of things that made Donald Trump look bad and then leak that to the press. All of those things lead to not just some kind of goofy officer on patrol, but someone who's actively trying to undermine the president, take him down. So no, I don't buy that they were dupes in the situation. I think that they had malfeasance here. They were bad actors toward the president and trying to hobble his administration.
I totally agree. Here's Joe Concha.
Hey, Chris, quick question for you. If the GOP takes back the House, a lot of people talk about how there will be almost immediately investigations and hearings into Hunter Biden, his laptop, and if the president had profited off of those dealings in China and Ukraine, and if he is compromised at this point. But I would think that their first order of business would be to call Chris Wray to testify, because now he has been FBI director for 5 years and for whatever reason doesn't seem to be very interested in pursuing the Hunter Biden case with the vigor that he does other cases. Will Wray be one of the first people called to testify in the Hill, do you believe?
I'm not sure exactly who the top list is for Jim Jordan, who I think is going to be leading a lot of this stuff, but I suspect he will definitely be on that. The Republican Party's got a lot to investigate at this point. They've got some folks in there like Jordan who are going to be pit bulls on it, are going to trying to demand some answers. I mean, we've been doing this. We've been talking now about Russia and the FBI and the undermining of the president here on this program for 6 years, and we're still just beginning to get answers. So I don't get too excited that we're going to get those answers in the next year or two. But I think, Christopher Wray is going to be near the top of the target list. And
incredibly, the people who abused power are now back in power, like Jake Sullivan in the State Department, who was peddling that lie of Russia collusion for 3 years. And now there's just bad policy in this wide open border that they're trying to distract us from. 3 illegal migrant buses arrived in New York's Port Authority this morning. So far, 30 buses have arrived in the Big Apple this week alone, Chris, as Border Patrol agents in Texas discovered a group of illegal migrants hidden inside a grain hopper rail car earlier this week. Agents said that the migrants were trapped inside, no way to escape. It's amazing to me that we're not hearing more from the Biden administration and the Democrats of this death and destruction of these migrants. This dangerous trek has people drowning, suffocating. And yet, we don't hear any word about it. Alejandro Mayorkas continues to say the border is secure, as if we're morons.
And thank God those illegal immigrants were found. This is a perfect example of the complete disregard for human life that the cartels who run the border, who run the American border, have for the people who they're supposedly trying to give a better life. They don't care. They sealed them in there. They'll let people die. It matters very little to them. And in the process, they're making billions now, billions of dollars running America's border while the Democrats try to deny it. The American people are going to answer that. And we'll see, especially in these elections in southern Texas, places the Democrats had a lot of hope for, how the GOP is probably going to win based on this issue alone.
Yeah, Chad Wolf yesterday, former DHS secretary, told us that in 2021, the dangerous cartels took in $31 billion. So they are making some serious money on this wide open border. Christopher, thanks very much. We'll be following your work as always. Chris Bedford.